Stay tuned and let's take a look at this Marvel Legends X-Men VHS Mystique. Pow and welcome back to the channel, Dan Who Reviews. As always, my name is Dan W. Make sure you are following me on Instagram at It's Dan Who. And remember, you can now hit that join button and become a channel member as well. Either show some love or join the members club. Much appreciated. Today we are taking a look at the Marvel Legends VHS X-Men Mystique, who is the 7th figure in this VHS series so far and only the 2nd villain. So of course we know what this line is all about by now. It is a tribute to that 90s animated X-Men series that we hold so close to our hearts. Super nostalgic for me at least. And this series is re-releasing figures and characters we already have in the Legends line, but with a little bit of cel shading on them to make them more accurate to their animated appearance. It's also an opportunity for people to pick up characters they may have missed out on the first time round, including Mystique here, who was originally a Walgreens exclusive and quite hard to get hold of and goes for a pretty penny on the aftermarket. So if you're not bothered by the cel shading, then this is definitely an opportunity to add Mystique to the collection. But if you're like me, building out this separate team of the X-Men for a separate animated shelf, then that is what this is all about. And I do really like the packaging here. A nice image of how she appears on that animated show. We've got X-Men up top, Mystique, the plastic-free packaging. Again, on the side here, we get a picture of Mystique looking in a certain way. I'll show you all the boxes in a minute. And then on the back, we get a write-up that reads, "The mutant shapeshifter known as Mystique uses her powers to infiltrate and undermine the X-Men." So no cross sale on here would have been good, as there are lots of figures in this line already. As I said, she is the 7th. So let's have a look at what they look like. So here we have all 7 VHS X-Men figures that they have released this year so far. We've got Morph, Jean Grey, Storm, Jubilee, Wolverine, and then the 2 villains are Mr. Sinister and Mystique. Now we do know there is one more figure to be released this year in this VHS line. It's up for pre-order right now. It is the leader of the X-Men himself, Scott Summers, aka Cyclops, which makes sense to have the leader of the X-Men in this line. So we will complete the year with 8 VHS figures. Hasbro have already announced that in 2023 they are taking a hiatus from X-Men being on this VHS style card as they move towards the animated SpiderMan series. But I don't think that means we have seen the last of animated series X-Men figures, especially considering the series makes a return with the same continuity next year on Disney+. So expect a lot of X-Men in the year 2023. That's all I'm saying. But they definitely look great together. And as the year's gone on, I have appreciated this line more and more as I understand the gimmick. They do look great. I've actually put a new shelf up in my display room just so I can display these boxes with the actual figures, and I'm making my own animated shelf. Maybe I'll show you that once we get Cyclops here and we have the set complete. But there we are, looking great. But today, of course, I'm taking this out as we are taking a look at Mystique. So let's waste no time and get her open. Here we have Mystique out of the packaging with all of her accessories. And did I mention this was an actual 2-pack, as here we have little baby Kurt, aka Nightcrawler. I will explain all very shortly. She also comes with a set of trigger finger hands and then 2 guns as well, which are essentially just repacks. Now, there was a little bit of controversy with this figure at first, as the promo images on the box art actually showed this figure with the double jointed pinless arms, which are a massive upgrade for female characters, especially one that wields some weapons like she has. Unfortunately, the figure that we actually get is just on the old Marvel Legends single jointed female body. So it's still pinless, but it is just a single joint, which is unfortunate. She's also on these female legs that I actually despise in 2022. We really need to move away from these jelly-legged warping female legs, because they are all over my collection, and I've got so many warped-legged females. So unfortunately, this Mystique is still going to be plagued with that. But just looking at the figure herself, I do think she accurately represents what we see on the animated show, because the animated show was quite fair to the actual comic panels. So let's have a quick look. Comparing Mystique to the animated appearance, the figure looks spot on. Look, let's be honest, blue skin, white dress, red hair, yellow skull bout. This is clearly Mystique. They have just added a little bit of cel shading on there to make it more of an animated appearance, as you've got that sort of grey tint over the white, a little bit of blue tint, if you will. The only difference that I can spot is in the animated series, she was wearing heels. The figure, she's just got flat shoes on, which is a sacrifice I'm willing to make, as the female figures hardly stand with those jelly legs as it is. I'm happy to sacrifice those heels. Now, the face design and the skulls may be a little bit different than what we see on the animated show, but let's be honest, it's close enough. I'm happy. Zooming in to take a closer look at Mystique. As I said, it is the same figure from the Walgreens exclusive, same body, same face sculpt, but we do have new hair. That is your difference here. The hair is a little bit longer down the back there. So it's still a short red bob, as Mystique should have, but it is a new hairpiece to make it more accurate to the animated show. Nicely sculpted, no wash in there though to bring out the details, but it will create shadows when the light hits it. So there you go. That is your difference from the previous version to this Mystique. We do have new hair, and there is no cel shading on this head as well, so we may be able to try some head swaps later. Other than that though, we've still got the yellow skull up top, the yellow outed eyes, the red lips and the teeth showing, so it's the same facial expression. So that is your big difference. The figure, however, is exactly the same. We've still got the skull bout, which is a separate piece, so it won't hinder any limited articulation this body has, and we've still got the flat shoes at the bottom. The cel shading on this figure is all on the inside and then under the chest a little bit. It's also on the inside of the hands as well, and the forearms. You can see it's like grey, sort of bluish. There it is on the body, and there it is on the forearms, and it's on both sets of hands as well. It also goes down the front of the skirt of the white piece, and then on the back as well. You can see that line, but there is no cel shading on any of the blue skin at all, which people may be pointed out. There's a bit on the boots as well, of course. There you go, some on the boots there, and then on the inside of that one. So on the inside of both boots, essentially, you have cel shading. So that is obviously the gimmick with this line. It's cel shading to represent the animated appearance, and again, I think they've done a pretty good job here. So out of the packaging, she comes with a set of open palm, sort of more expressive hands. Now, as I said, we do have the single jointed elbows. It's an older Marvel Legends body. We've still got the pins on the legs, but it is double jointed at least, so she can still do that. Other than that, same standard articulation, thigh swivel, no bicep swivel, but the shoulders are nice. No cut at the waist, but we do got the diaphragm joint, so you get a little bit of tilt, a little bit of forward and back, and that's where you get your rotation. Head is on a disc and hinge, so same as we would expect. Female body, but let's have a look at what else she comes with. First, she comes with a set of trigger finger hands. That's because she also has guns. She comes with 2 guns, a bigger rifle type thing, and then a shorter pistol. Now, I'm assuming these guns are just like reuse from maybe the Shield's 2-pack, the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. 2-pack, and many other places, I imagine. But they've just thrown them in with Mystique, because why not? I don't understand why you'd have guns, though, that are the same sort of colour as your skin tone. That just feels a little bit weird. But we have plenty of weapons in our Marvel Legends fodder boxes that we can use these for. It's just awkward because she has the single jointed elbows. She can hold the pistol quite fine and look fine holding that, but if you want to in a dramatic pose with the bigger rifle, it's always going to be a little bit more awkward. So they're just fun little packings. At least she comes with 2 trigger hands to actually hold them. I'm more interested in the other accessory, little baby blue Hulk. I mean blue Nightcrawler. Baby Nightcrawler from the animated series. Even though, yes, this is just a straight up repaint of little baby Hulk that came with Old Man Logan. So yeah, exactly the same piece. It's just a fun accessory. There's no articulation at all, but it is nicely sculpted all the same. So yes, we have a baby Nightcrawler, but it's a nice deep cut actually from the animated series, because in the show, Nightcrawler confronts Mystique about his past, and she admits to him that she actually abandoned him as a baby, because yes, spoiler alert people, Mystique is Nightcrawler's mother. I don't know if the blue skin ever gave that away, but yes, those are the facts. As you can imagine, he's a little bit awkward to hold, but you can get Mystique holding her little bundle of joy for a photo, for a pose on the shelf. So if you have a river nearby, then make sure you keep Mystique away, because she will abandon him at any chance she gets. But it is a nice deep cut and a nice throwback to the animated series. And there is a tiny bit of cel shading on this figure as well, as on his blanket, there's a little bit of darker brown on the sort of maroon of it. But there you go, Mystique reunited with her abandoned child. How nice. And here we have the most interesting comparison from these VHS figures. Of course, we have our cel-shaded VHS Mystique to the left, and then to the right, the Walgreens exclusive comic Mystique, which is a much more vibrant blue as well. Also, her belt is gold rather than the yellow. The dress in style is a tiny bit different as she has the longer gloves painted on. Otherwise, it's the same. They both have the same flat feet. From the face to the toes, actually, this is the exact same figure, as I keep pointing out. The only difference is their hairpiece. Their hair sculpt is different, and of course the red hair is more brighter on the VHS version. As we take a closer look, you can see for yourself there's a darker red on the comic version with some sort of black highlight at the bottom, which I actually quite like, but the red hair is more accurate to the animated show. So that is your differences. I said earlier we could try a head swap, but we can't, of course, because the blues are a different colour, so it just wouldn't make sense. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to throw these figures on the spinning around table, and you can let me know in the comments below which Mystique is better. Do you think that you can use a VHS cel-shaded character in a comic collection? Like, in the comics, they did have cel shading and shadows. It could sort of work, but I get it if you don't want to, because I can't mix them either. I'm weird like that. I'm creating their own display in the collection. But as always, you let me know in the comments what you think of these Mystique figures. But they're your differences. Continuing with comparisons, first up, we have the only other villain in the VHS line so far. It is, of course, Mr. Sinister. And to be fair, in the animated show, Mr. Sinister and Mystique do team up and share many a screen together. So it makes sense to pose these together as well. Now, the only other villain we sort of have in the VHS line is Evil Morph, of course, because he was brainwashed by Mr. Sinister. So I guess you could put these three together on a shelf to be your evil part of the VHS X-Men. I'm also going to bring in animated inspired Apocalypse. Now, technically, this guy wasn't in the VHS line. He was on a retro card, so he doesn't have cel shading, but he still represents Apocalypse's animated appearance. So of course he will work with some of these animated inspired X-Men characters. So here he is next to Mystique. But if I bring all these guys back in, then this is probably how my evil contingent of my VHS X-Men display will look, with Mr. Sinister, Apocalypse, Evil Morph, and Mystique. And these undoubtedly look great together. Next up, we have Mystique compared to all the other X-Men we have gotten on this VHS card so far. It is, of course, Jubilee, Wolverine, Jellyleg Jean, and Storm. Now, to be honest, with all of these on the table, the standouts are still Wolverine and Storm for me personally. But it is nice to see these all together, and will definitely make for a great display. And I know this isn't the best pose, but I did want to get everybody back on the table to see how they all look together, as these are all of the figures that I'm going to be using in my animated inspired X-Men display. None of these figures are going to be mixed in my comic shelf, so they're going to have their own real estate, their own shelf in my collection, standing in front of the VHS boxes for their own animated look, and they look great. Now, obviously, Apocalypse wasn't in the VHS line, but it is his animated look, so it still works even without the cel shading. We've still got Cyclops to add to the mix before the year is out as well, and maybe, just maybe, we could probably fudge the Dan Who Blue Beast in there with his lab coat, but maybe. But I'm sure Hasbro have some more tricks up their sleeve, as next year the animated series does return, so I'm sure we're going to get more figures, and I'm sure we'll see the return of the X-Men on the VHS cards as well. To try and answer the question, will Mystique fit into a comic display, here we have a couple of the evil Brotherhood of Mutants, as we have Magneto, Toad, Pyro, and a little mashup of Mastermind. We know we're getting Avalanche on the retro card before the year is out, and fingers crossed next year for a Blob re-release. Instead, I'm really happy with how this team rounds out. But as you can see, I think Mystique blends in pretty well, even with the cel shading. And here we have mother and son reunited, as we have Mystique with little baby Kurt, and then we have Nightcrawler all grown up. Then here we have a couple more animated inspired Marvel Legends with Spider-Man and Scorpion. Go and check out both of my reviews for these on the channel right now. And then here we have Mystique compared to Tigra, White Rabbit, and Frogman, although I wouldn't trust him with your baby. And last but absolutely never least, here we have Captain Britain and Hal, Fire, Hank. And I know you're a shapeshifter, but it doesn't matter who you transform into, we won't hit a woman. Oh shit. So, final thoughts on this Marvel Legends X-Men VHS Mystique. Now, I really like the Mystique character, and her character design is very simple and it doesn't change too much from comic to the animated series. And I do think that both of these figures are a solid representation of Mystique for your collection. However, because I like the character, I definitely think she's worthy of a better female mold. And the box art did tease us with what could have been with those double jointed pinless elbows. That would have made such a difference, but I really don't like the gammy jelly legs on these female figures either. Enough is enough. Throughout the whole review, you could see that my Mystique had a bent leg, as I haven't warmed her up yet, and my whole collection is plagued with female figures just like that. So apart from the body mold here, I do like this figure. I think it's a great representation, and the animated series, there's just a few stylized differences between the character design, and I do think they tried to capture that in figure form. So whether you missed out on the previous Mystique and you're picking up this one, or you're building out that VHS line, I do think you'll like Mystique, and she will be added to the shelf all the same. But you let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you like cel shaded Marvel Legends, or do you think this will work in a comic display? Always curious to hear your thoughts. But as always, if you like Marvel Legends, then guess what? You're in the right place. Check out the videos tab, find the playlist, but most importantly, please hit that subscribe button. Much appreciated. You can hit the notification bell, don't miss out on a video, and please hit the join button. Either show some love or join the members club. Much appreciated. You can follow me on Instagram at It's Dan Who, and I'm on Twitter as well. Tweet me, don't be shy, at Dan Who Reviews. And until then, people, my name is Dan W, and I'll of course see you on the next one.